Good evening. A second group of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners have been released as a temporary ceasefire in Gaza continues to hold. 17 hostages, including 13 Israelis and 4 Thai nationals, were transferred by the Red Cross into Egypt earlier this morning. Hamas initially delayed the exchange for several hours, claiming Israel had violated terms of the truce deal prior to this, 13 Israelis, 10 Thai farm workers and a Filipino were released by Hamas, while 24 Palestinian women and 15 teenagers were released from an Israeli prison. Members of the Jewish community have gathered in Sydney CBD calling for the release of all remaining hostages. A crowd of several thousand in Martin Place waved Israeli flags and held up signs with the faces of those hostages who are still being held. The number of journalists killed since October 7 has again risen. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, an American non-profit, 57 journalists and media workers have been killed, with the vast majority being Palestinian. The figures show 50 Palestinians, 4 Israelis and 3 Lebanese killed in the past 6 weeks. Additionally, 11 journalists have been reported injured, 3 reported missing and 19 reported arrested. Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe has told a crowd in Melbourne at a pro-Palestine rally that she will fight for them. Speaking in the CBD near the State Library of Victoria, Thorpe apologised for not attending previous rallies, saying she's been under police protection and hasn't been able to go to Parliament to do her job, but will be in the Senate chamber tomorrow. Last month, the Victorian Senator and former Greens member accused of Australian Federal Police of failing to protect her after becoming the target of extremist abuse, where she was tagged in a video where a man performed a Nazi salute while burning the Aboriginal flag. Dozens of homes in Western Australia have been damaged or completely destroyed by a bushfire that's continuing to burn in Perth's north. Authorities say around 18 homes have been lost and another 12 damaged, with residents warned that conditions can be changed any time. Last night, the Department of Fire and Emergency Services in WA issued a warning for some people in the Shire of Ashburton that there was a danger to lives and homes and they needed to leave immediately.
The Western Australian community and the Western Australian government is standing by them. We want them to understand that we understand that they are doing it tough at the moment. The opportunity for them to be accommodated in Bullsbrook is wonderful, but we know we need to do more. So the opportunity to speak with them today will be to be able to talk to them about their experiences, their pain, their fears for the future, but also just to let them know that we'll stand by them and to understand what else we can do to support them as they go on this next part of their journey.
30 properties in the worst affected parts of the city of Wanneroo and the city of Swan have been damaged. NDIS Minister Bill Shorten has responded after the Victorian Liberal Party formally proposed abolishing his seat as part of electoral boundary reviews. As revealed exclusively by 6 News, the submission from the Liberals calls for Gorton, Fraser and Maribyrnong, all of which are Labor held in Melbourne, to be merged into 2 divisions, resulting in the abolition of Maribyrnong. Shorten currently holds the seat, which has been won by Labor at every election since 1969, with more than 62% of the 2-party preferred vote. On Twitter, Shorten responded by saying it was typical of the Liberals to try and abolish one of, quote, the only Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander named seats in Australia, and they couldn't win it in a fair fight. Significant changes have also been proposed for Melbourne, held by Greens leader Adam Banton, Macnamara held by Labor MP Josh Burns. The Liberals are proposing that Macnamara should cross the Yarra River to take in Southbank, Docklands and Melbourne CBD, then subsequently change its name to the Division of Melbourne. As part of that proposal, the existing seat of Melbourne would move north and be named Peacock after the first woman to serve in the Victorian Parliament, Lady Millie Peacock. Protests have continued over the planned demolition of the Gabba. The Queensland Stadium is being torn down and redeveloped out of the 2032 Brisbane Olympics. Our very own Austin Pollock is outside the Gabba with the latest.
We're here at the Gabba where yesterday hundreds of protesters marched the streets of East Brisbane. It comes after on Friday, Queensland Deputy Premier Stephen Miles announced the final plans for the Gabba redevelopment, set to be the centrepiece of the 2032 Olympics and beyond. The $2.7 billion project aims to transform the ageing venue into a state-of-the-art facility, addressing concerns raised in a 2018 task force report that labelled the Gabba as tired and reaching its end of useful life period by 2030. Demolition of the Gabba is scheduled to commence after the 2025 Ashes test, which marks 130 years since the establishment of the venue. The reconstruction is set to last 4 years, during which the AFL side Brisbane Lions and Queensland Cricket will need to find alternative home grounds. One of these is expected to be the RNA Showgrounds. The project validation report highlighted that a demolition and rebuild would yield the best outcome for the city, with the new look Gabba expected to host events by 2030, well before the commencement of the 2032 Olympic Games. Now, the stadium's capacity is also set to see a significant boost, going from 42,000 in its current state to 50,000 by 2030, and up to 80,000 for special sporting events and other events as well. The revamped Gabba will feature 360-degree accessibility, including 3 new pedestrian bridges, making Queensland's most extensive renewal urban initiative since South Bank's Expo 88 redevelopment. This will extend beyond the stadium to form the East Bank precinct, comprising of retail spaces, dining options, 880 new apartments and new open spaces.
It will be affordable and livable. The current stadium generally only seats between 34 and 37,000. The city will effectively expand. We've accepted the outcomes of the detailed business case.
It's a legacy asset that will be used week in, week out by the community.
Now, while the ambitious project has received the backing of the federal government and people like Treasurer Jim Chalmers, not everyone is on board. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the Gabba Stadium yesterday, expressing discontent over the demolition plans. In a protest organised with the Greens, they argue that the allocated billions could be better spent on addressing the state's housing and cost of living crisis. Greens MP Amy McMahon and Max Chandler-Mather.
There's a range of other options that don't require closing a school and moving kids kilometres down the road. Yesterday, the Deputy Premier indicated he'd like to rename this area East Bank. I think he should rename it Labor's Electoral Graveyard.
If they end up losing the next state election, this is going to be one of the symbols of their neglect.
Concerns were also raised about the loss of Raymond Park and the relocation of the 124-year-old East Brisbane State School. 6 News spoke with a former student of the school, voicing her concerns.
It would be lovely if the school could remain open, because they're developing units everywhere and young families are moving into the district. They will need the school, but sadly I feel it's going to move on. I came to the school, we came from Sydney in 1943. My brothers and I started our Queensland education there and quickly met many of the local kids and formed lifetime friendships. Today, I could sit with 4 other friends on the steps of that school proudly and remember the wonderful times we had.
The protest took place amid the backdrop of the tender process set to start next year, with construction set to commence in 2026.
The Country Liberal Party has pledged to lower the age of criminal responsibility if they win next year's Northern Territory election. Last year, the Labor government raised the age from 10 to 12, making the NT the first Australian jurisdiction where the age of responsibility was above 10 years old. It comes just days after an 80-year-old woman had a rock thrown at her face, allegedly by one of 3 juvenile offenders who were robbing her home. 3 children, 2 aged 13 and 1 just 11, have since been taken into custody. Police saying earlier this year they are confident there are adequate plans in place to address crime over the summer period in Alice Springs. The CLP lost government in 2016 and Labor was re-elected in 2020. The 2024 NT election will be held in August. That is 6 News for now. You can of course stay up to date by heading to our website and following us on social media at 6 News AU. News is on the hour, every hour here on 6 News. For now though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.